Good afternoon, councillors, those here in attendance in the gallery and those who might be listening in now or at their leisure. It's great to have everybody here for the attendance of our special meeting, but as we do meet here today on unceded Palawa lands, they are the original and ongoing owners, and I open today's special meeting at 1:01. Thank you. Also, in opening of today's meeting, as we do attendance and apologies, we just have one apology today from Councillor McMahon, but I want to take this opportunity to thank and welcome the two new councillors as a part of the Electoral Commission countback, rejoining us here with Councillor Priest, and welcome to Ross Marsden in the first term there as well. It's great to have you here and continuing to put your hand up and contributing to making Launceston the best place that we all know and see that it can be. So thank you very much. Okay, commencement of the meeting. And as we commence the meeting, it's just again in the regulations to say that an audio-visual recording is being made of the meeting. All persons attending the meeting are to be respectful of and considerate towards other people attending the meeting. Language and conduct at the meeting that could be perceived as offensive, defamatory or threatening to a person attending the meeting or listening to the recording is not acceptable. Okay, commencement time of the meeting at 2.1. We have the Local Government Meeting Procedure Regulation 2025 Regulation 7.1. A meeting is not to start before 5 p.m. unless otherwise determined by an absolute majority or by a council committee by simple majority. The decision requires an absolute majority of council. In noting that, our recommendation for item agenda number 2 is that council by absolute majority determines that this special meeting is to start as soon as possible after 1 p.m. on Monday, 1st of September, which is today. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris, seconded. Councillor Palmer, any contributions around the table? Okay, putting it to the vote. All of those in favour, the motion is carried. Declarations of interest at 3. A councillor must declare any interest that councillor has in any matter before any discussion on that matter commences. I ask the table, do we have any declarations of interest today? Okay, there being none, we will move forward to Planning Authority. Item agenda number 4, under the provisions of the Land Use Planning Act and Approvals Act of 1993, Council acts as a planning authority in regards to items included in agenda item 11, Planning Authority. We've got 4.1, which is 69 to 92 St Leonard's Road and 23 Killafatty Road in St Leonard's. Before we get to our recommendation, just looking to the gallery, I don't have any noted speakers, but I will open it up to the gallery if there are any speakers to agenda item 4.1, whether it's for or against.
Yeah, I'd like to speak.
And if we could just start with your name and your suburb, please.
Yeah, sure. Vanessa Scott, Newstead, Launceston. I'm here today to object to the proposed development of the AI factory in our regional city. While the centre may use closed-loop cooling and therefore less water than conventional data centres, this does not offset the enormous amount of electricity these facilities consume. And while I understand that electricity is not part of council's remit or the planning remit, but any strain on the grid is going to affect all of our ratepayers and our residents. And I'm just wondering if the massive use of power has been taken into account in this planning application and the recommended approval for it. Globally, we've also seen AI factories take up massive tracts of land in America, Europe and Asia, often displacing local priorities and locking communities into infrastructure demands they didn't ask for. These facilities are not designed to serve the towns they occupy, they're designed to serve global tech interests. This particular proposal is backed by a Singaporean company that has been open about coming to Tasmania to exploit our cheap and abundant resources. This is not about investing in our community, it's about extracting value from it. Let's also talk about the chemicals used in cooling systems, and if they leak, what serious risk do they pose to soil, water health and ultimately residents' health. And let's be clear, as much as this application said it's a job creator, AI factories aren't big job creators and not continually employing people. And this can be seen in this application. There's something like 10 car parks. For the amount of space this is taking up, this shows that it's not a massive employer. They don't bring mass employment, nor do they stimulate local economies in the way traditional industries do. What they do bring is increased pressure on our infrastructure, environmental strain, and the risk of locking our region into a future shaped by external interests. Despite the recommendation to approve it, I urge Council and councillors to reject this proposal, even if I'm up against a brick wall, and I'll go now. We deserve development that respects our values, protects our resources, and puts Launceston and Tasmanians first. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further speakers to the item?
John Perry, Coordinator General. Our office strongly supports this proposal in relation to the opportunity that it creates for this city, which is quite extraordinary. This particular development would put the state on a global scale. One of the most interesting aspects of it is because of the economic business case for it, it also has the capacity to underwrite new energy development. Our office doesn't have any concerns in relation to the ability of the state to supply energy for this development, and in fact, quite the contrary, we think it has the opportunity to underwrite new energy development in the state. So we're in support of it and commend it to the Council.
Thank you. Any further speakers?
First and foremost, Oliver Curtis for Firmus. Thank you very much for taking the meeting today. I just wanted to make a few comments on record in relation to what we are actually doing here. We are actually an Australian company. We have been in Tasmania for 7 years. We've already invested tens of millions of dollars into Tasmania, specifically into Launceston. The project itself is about uplifting Tasmania, and specifically northern Tasmania, and the ability to create new baseload, new industry that should in turn have a flow-on effect into local community and local economy here. We are very passionate about our design. We have won multiple global awards around sustainability. We use 99% less water, and we are globally recognised to use 50% less energy. In terms of the actual development itself, there is absolutely no chemicals used that are dangerous or harmful. It is actually a water-based system that is globally used around the world. It's called direct-to-chip. We are and will be always about making Tasmania first, and we believe that this is a fantastic opportunity for northern Tasmania and specifically for Launceston.
Thank you. Any further speakers? Okay, we'll move forward then through to the recommendation. The recommendation being that a permit be granted for research and development construction of new data centre, including associated infrastructure and works at 66 to 92 St Leonard's Road and 23 Killafatty Road, St Leonard's, subject to the published conditions. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris has moved. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the speakers, both for and against it. I do have some questions which I may start off with, if I can, please. First of all, in regard to the zoning of the land to the south, I believe part of the land is zoned industrial or light industrial. The other part is zoned rural. Will this, I believe the use is acceptable under rural, or does that be changed to light industrial? And therefore, what happens to the balance of the rural land? Does that also go to light industrial?
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Through you, Executive Leader.
I've asked the Town Planner answer.
Yep.
Yes, so it's in two zones. Part of it's in light industrial where the use is permitted, so it meets all the tests in that zone. It's also in the rural zone where it's a discretionary use. There's no application proposed to change the zoning at this stage. It's been assessed against discretionary use standards for the rural zone.
Thank you. We've talked about that this is a very large site, 2 sheds, 6,500 square metres each, or an acre and a half for those of us who can still remember what an acre is, each shed. Now, to do that, there's a lot of cut and fill required, which to me will enter perhaps the floodplain for the North Esk River. So is the cutting and filling, and I believe there's up to 8 metres of fill, likely to have any effect on the flooding that the North Esk occasionally undergoes at that point, and if so, what conditions can we put against it?
Yeah, the cut and fill's not located in the flood-prone areas, so it won't impact on the flood, and it's to provide a level access so that there's servicing for the vehicles for construction. So it won't impact on the floodplain. It's separated and it hasn't been assessed in terms of the flood risk from it. If it was, we would have dealt with that as part of the assessment.
Thank you. There's been claims made about the health risks and additional asthma-related claims. Have you got any comments about whether that is relative in this particular development application, or perhaps more relative for those applications of existing AI warehouses that are built where they burn fossil fuels such as coal and therefore have a direct influence on increased asthma cases, whereas I believe that all of this will be powered by green power, as we like to call it, that being solar, wind, backed up by our own hydro.
In terms of what would cause the asthma, I'm not sure what that would be, but in terms of emissions, we've assessed it in terms of those that were applicable. There is diesel generators, but they're only going to be operating for occasional maintenance, standby, and for emergency situations. And so we've included a condition on the permit to limit the maintenance period for that so that it's not operating for an extended time. It was also referred to the EPA to confirm whether it needed to be assessed for environmental harm, and they were happy that council would be able to appropriately manage the facility.
Thank you. And your response leads me to my next question about the possible noise increase that the diesel generators on standby might have in a valley where sound, depending on the wind, can carry. Whilst I've read the reports and think I understand them, to have some, would you be able to hear, I forget what the figures were now of the dB increase that was there, whether you would expect that sound over a quiet night to be carried to create a new base of sound, or whether in fact it is relatively low in the sound spectrum.
So the noise has only been assessed in terms of the rural zone. If it was all in the light industrial zone, we wouldn't even be assessing the noise because it's only under the discretionary use classes in the rural zone. So what we were basing our assessment based on the noise assessment, and that included a number of recommendations for limiting the noise of the machinery and designing the site so that anything that was noisy was as far away from residential users as they can, and found that an acceptable level of noise could be attained if the mitigations and recommendations of the report were implemented.
And finally, just my other question is just in regard to the fact that there are 13 conditions requiring amended plans to be lodged as part of this recommendation. That seems to be a lot, or is that perhaps normal for such a large development, or is in fact 13 conditions and only one amended plan will be lodged?
Yeah, so the amended plans relates to the parking area. They're just some minor changes to the plans to bring it into greater conformity with the Australian standards for accessibility. And because the development set had 13 plans and demonstrating different things on it, it's just making sure that the changes were picked up on all of those.
Yep, Deputy Mayor, a question?
So just two questions from me at this stage. One is in regard to scenic protection. Could you just explain how this development is consistent with the North East Scenic Protection Area? Noting there are a couple of comments that are made in the report, but I just wouldn't mind those being explained.
Sorry, the planning report provides quite a bit of detail on the scenic protection area, and that's in response to C 8.6.1. And sorry, there's a number of management objectives as well, so it's gone through that in quite a bit of detail. One of the first issues is the clearance of vegetation in the scenic protection area. The vegetation was assessed by a natural values assessment and found to not provide priority vegetation or anything, and it was probably actually declared weeds, which would make it exempt for them to remove under their requirements for weeds. And then there's going to the size and the scale of the building in there, in the scenic protection area. And like I say, I've gone through that in quite some detail. It's on page 47 of the agenda. And generally the location of the building is set below the skyline, so it won't be seen that much. And it's preserving the area adjoining directly to the river and proposing to landscape that area. And one of the issues is being able to provide more native vegetation. So as a condition, we will be working with the applicant to be able to provide a plan that should hopefully actually preserve and improve some of the plantings that are in that area at the moment, because it's sort of got a lot of weeds and things at the moment.
So just supplementary to that, then I guess the views from the river I can understand, the views from St Leonard's Road I can understand, the views from the Newstead side of the river where there are residents that do face back towards that. How is that? Is that in the protection zone? It sort of doesn't appear in the written word there that it is.
Yeah, so one of the plans shows the area, and part of the western end of the buildings is located in the scenic protection area, but not the entire site. So it's just that boundary. So the building height and the development that's there is contributed by the fill, and in general the buildings are they will be seen sort of directly across. They've got areas of around, sorry, I can't remember the exact figures, but around 6,000, 7,000 square metres each, but not all of that is in the scenic protection. And so from the other side of the river, you'll be looking at the shorter elevations of those buildings. They've got articulated form and finishes that are muted in colour. We've included a condition on the permit as well that any of the equipment that's located in the area is also finished in muted or dull tones so that it doesn't look too much. And we'll also be working to see what the landscaping will do so that the fill is vegetated and that there's also the plantings along that river edge, they're preserved. Aside from that, the development does have separation from the river, and there is also the separation on the other side of the valley as well.
Councillor Harris to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's something that, despite some people not being happy with this, I'm actually quite happy to see a data centre such as this finally being brought to Launceston. Tasmania has many natural advantages, and we should always try to maximise those. We are a stable political democracy. We are located on the 42nd parallel, which means we have a cool and temperate climate, and we are also geologically quite secure, and we don't have volcanoes very often. As such, we are in a good position for the building of such buildings, which really create a lot of heat, and dispersing that heat is much more difficult if you're in a tropical climate, such as those in Singapore, or even in, as often has been built in Australia to date, in our northern cities such as Sydney and Brisbane. So to me, this is something that has been long overdue for Tasmania to be part of. don't get me wrong, these are two very, very big sheds. 6,500 square metres is a big shed, and there's two of them. We have talked about them being only 10 metres high above the ground level that will be created, but there will be up to 8 metres of fill, but that will be landscaped, which will help it drop down into the landscape. The buildings will seem to sink into that once those plantings have grown. I think also it's very important that this will bring in many hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in Tasmania, even though it probably doesn't bring many long-term jobs. The indications are there will be 10 people working a shift, 3 shifts a day, so 30 jobs potentially. That may, with leave and others, equate to more. But for each full-time job you actually create 7 other jobs in supporting them, whether that be in schools, in supermarkets, in feeding them and all the rest of it. So this is good investment for Tasmania. It doesn't really pollute the atmosphere, as we've heard, in some areas where they have built data centres in the past, because we have access to green energy. And it does, as one of the other speakers mentioned, provide a base load demand for future wind and solar projects, which is important for those investments to go ahead. And so what we are doing for the country is to reduce the amount of carbon that will be emitted if this was to be built somewhere else. Because if they were building it elsewhere, you would probably be powering it with coal. And as such, some of the other things that have been raised, such as the health risks, is something that is not the case with this particular development. So I'm quite happy to support it. Just look forward to any other councillors' comments. But I am very aware that it is a big shed, big location. It is, thankfully, somewhat lower than the road at St Leonard's. I tried to see it if I could see it when I was driving past, and you can't. And I don't believe I'll be able to see it once it's completed. However, for those residents who look across the valley, who would be on the back streets of Newstead or down near Old Mac's Farm, they will certainly see it in their vision, but it will in fact be at the bottom of the valley, and one hopes their eyes are lifted up towards the mountains in the future, above it, and they will get used to the change in view. Having said that, it once used to be a sale yard, and so it has had many uses, some of this land, and this is the change, but it's a change that we as a state certainly should be supporting, and we as a council should be supporting this development application today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Further contributions, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Look, I stand in support of the application today. It's been an interesting concept trying to read through this in the last few days, where you've got 2 different blocks of different styles and types and different considerations that we need to look at it. Clearly, there are a number of discretions that have been outlined in there: building height, discretionary use, setbacks, car parking, pedestrian access, traffic generation, building works with an electricity transmission corridor nearby, clearance of priority vegetation area and develop within the scenic protection area, and excavation work. So there's a number of things that need to be considered in the application. I asked specifically about the scenic protection because I guess that's something that we do hold dearly in our hearts in Launceston. And Councillor Harris talks about sale yards. It was actually more than sale yards there. It was a very big abattoir, significantly bigger in size and in size of area than what we're talking about here, I think. So it's been used for things further to the north of the site, admittedly. To me, it was more just the visual coming from the Newstead side of things, and that's been explained to me as to how that might work. And I think the fact that it's cut in, the fact is that if you're sitting on the Newstead side, you can actually see the industrial developments above them, which is currently the TasNetworks and Tasmanian Board Mills, which is now being redeveloped, and even around to the north, you can still see the Killafatty, which I think is now made up of other uses, including a domestic laundry. So there are a number of things which I think it fits into the place. It's just a cutting up of green land and putting buildings on it, the things that we just need to get our mind around, particularly when we move out of the light industrial into the rural aspect of it and what impact that has in taking that away. I would argue it was holding paddocks, I think, in the past mainly for cattle and sheep that are coming in for slaughter at the abattoir. And in itself now there is not a viable agricultural or rural activity that is undertaken, and you can see the spread of industrial activities along the St Leonard's Road corridor, and this is probably the last bit of infill, if you like, in regards to that area. So those looking out their back fence and seeing some greenery, I'm sure that will have some impact on them. To the hills in the distance, not so much. So I accept the comments made by the officer in regard to how the scenic protection plan has been applied. Also accept the concept in regard to the priority vegetation and the lack thereof, and the ability through landscaping and things to actually add value to that area. The mooted colours on the building will disguise some of the height and break it up by the fact that they're actually having different colour schemes through the build height to actually just break that up into the landscape. Building heights themselves, again, the buildings themselves are roughly within the dimensions acceptable for the zone, about 10 metres. It's the fill that actually makes the apparent height from ground level significantly higher. In one case, I think it's about 1.8 and the other in 8 metres. So I appreciate that will elevate the buildings and put them a little bit more on a pedestal. But provided and the conditions that are in there for colours, landscaping and so forth like that, I'm comfortable that can be dealt with appropriately. We look at setbacks, and they're really off the rear boundary, which is where Tas Networks operate out of, and the need for having setbacks against a non-habitable area seems to be quite appropriate from that perspective of it. Car parking numbers on the floor area, there's a lot of car parks required. On the number of people who are actually going to be utilising it from an employment point of view, it's 10 per shift. So 2 shifts, 20, 21 makes a bit of sense in regard to that. And then there's access, I think, for trucks and so forth like that to come in and utilise the site. Moreover, I guess there is still St Leonard's Road, the ability for people to park on St Leonard's Road if necessary in a situation where you need more car parks. And I think that then led to, I think, a condition in regard to pedestrian access by having footpaths and things like that, which were appropriate for people to be able to access the site from St Leonard's Road, and also in and around to make sure it was safe for people with DDA issues in close to that. So I'm happy that that's been dealt with appropriately. Traffic generation, again, not a significant number of traffic movements coming out onto St Leonard's Road, which is a pretty busy road now. It's a 70 km/h, I think maybe 60 or 70 at that point as you come out of there. So there seems to be enough space and time just where the location of it's a fairly straight bit of road where that is. So the ability, I think, for ingress and egress off that road, I think, is again appropriate. Building works within an electricity transmission corridor. Again, that's been dealt with because Tas Networks are the corridor that are next door to it, and they've said that they're comfortable with that being the case. And I think that's about it. So
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to the mover and the seconder. As we go to further contributions around the table, I just would like to respectfully say that we've got the report. I do take it as read, and I understand that it's nice to have some clarity, but we don't need the report relayed back to us, and we haven't had Mr Ginnan in here to remind us about our efficiencies, so maybe we'll take that as a little help from him, and we'll just remember that as we go forward. So if we can, let's try not to repeat things that are already in the report, and let's try not to repeat things that have already been said by councillors, but I look forward to seeing some further contributions from those who have got their hands up and waiting their turns then also. So next will be Councillor Gibson and Councillor Britton.
Thanks so much. I'll start with a succinct question if I can. Whilst the electricity consumption is not part of the planning scheme, my understanding is that we've had some conversations with regard to the impact or not on the electricity grid. Is there anything that could relay some assurity to Vanessa Scott with regard to the electricity requirements of the development?
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Through you, Executive Leader.
No, that is a Tas Networks matter, but the development has located there because of the access to the substation, so that's one of the reasons that it's being proposed where it is.
Great, thank you. Look, just a quick contribution from me, and certainly thank the Deputy Mayor for analysing the things that have been analysed. I think the reality is that it doesn't fit neatly into any particular category in terms of a data centre, but what has been undertaken in the report is a really diligent analysis of what is required. over the two different zones, as has been mentioned by previous speakers. For me, the reliance on the 10 performance criteria is what is most important, as well as other things such as volcanoes and lack of them in Tasmania, etc. But for me, containing it to planning and the 10 discretions, for me it's about the building height, it's about the setback, and importantly it's about the scenic protection. And I think what the report does through the various attachments that have been required is prove that whilst there are, of course, always things that have to be considered, and there are always things that will need to be contained within the resubmitted plans, that this is a compliant application. I want to say on record, Vanessa Scott is someone I really have the highest respect for, and I certainly appreciate the contribution that she's made today. But I do believe that this, whilst outside planning with all of its development and prosperous economic benefits, most importantly, when we're considering it as a member of a planning authority, despite it receiving 4 representations, it meets the scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Councillor Britton.
Thank you very much. I'll leave the report very well alone. I just wanted to point that I think this industry itself, the data industry, AI, is what the world is going to be focusing on in the next 5 to 10 years. If we, to quote from the tour, current data centres, for every unit of power they use, they require another 40% on top to cool themselves. They're not very efficient at all. This particular one, I'm going to look over this way, I think only needs about 2% on top of it to cool it. Is that about somewhere near right? Anyway, that to me, globally, we need to become more efficient with this type of stuff. We have a company here who's at the forefront of making this more efficient, and they've chosen Tasmania, which is known for its renewable energy, to come here and put their centre in. And personally, I think that ties in very well with Tasmanian values. I think it's exciting that we can be at the forefront and part of this, and yeah, I do rise to support this today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Britton. Any further contributions around the table? Councillor Walker?
Thank you, Chair. And I might just start with a question, if I may, in regards to that priority vegetation zone and the landscaping agreement. And that is something that the proponents would enter into post this decision. What is the process there, and is there any feedback or input that comes from that, or is it just something that's internally managed by council?
Yeah, so there was 2 things in terms of the natural values. There was the assessment in terms of priority vegetation, because the entire site, well, I think most of the site in the rural zone is priority vegetation. So a natural values assessment was prepared, which didn't find anything of consequence there. In fact, there was mostly weeds. And then there was the clearance of vegetation in the scenic protection area. And like I say, most of that can be weeds. So in terms of buffering for the height and for the qualities of the site in the scenic protection area, we've included a condition on the permit for a landscape plan, which is recommended that local native vegetation is included. I can't remember quite the detail, but so that we can try and improve some of that corridor of the North Esk along that western side of the site.
I suppose my question was just how does that feedback come to council or to staff and come to fruition? Is there any sign off?
So the plan has to be signed off by council's environmental scientist, and then it has to be implemented within 30 or 60 days of the use proceeding as well. So there's 2 checks and balances.
Thank you to speak, if I may, Chair. Thank you. And I will attempt not to cover old ground. And I do appreciate the representatives here today and making that effort. Vanessa Scott, have to say, much of what you said, I'm in agreement with. We do have questions about power consumption. We do have questions about potential impacts of developments like this. But as you rightly acknowledge as well, this is not a council decision. It does make these situations sometimes a little bit difficult. The Coordinator General has joined us, thank you very much, and has also made representation. I understand he's been working for a number of years to help this development go through, and in many ways it does tick the boxes. Near a substation, being able to access 50 megawatts of power without having to put in additional infrastructure and things like that makes a big difference. In so many ways, this is an ideal fit, and for many years, decades probably, Tasmania has talked about data centres as being a sensible type of development that takes advantage of our cool climate and our renewable energy. Having said all that, I do believe that it's understandable why people may be concerned, but what our decision here is today is to look at the planning scheme and to look at this development in relation to that. And I can see that most, if not all, angles have been covered that we are able to address. It's perhaps that landscaping, that scenic protection, and the results of that are probably where the only question marks are for me. I'd be interested to know the impact on our interstate cables, for example. I've got no idea how much data gets transferred back and forth. I know that it's going to use 50 megawatts of power. That's not an insignificant amount. And it may also lead to further companies thinking this is a good place, which will indeed put more stress on our infrastructure. This is probably not the place or the forum for those decisions to be discussed, as much as we might like to be able to discuss them here. It's probably something you might want to take up with the Coordinator General, considering his hand in the matter over the last 6 to 7 years. And I'm sure there are other companies that have also looked at Tasmania as being an ideal place for this type of venture. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll say that I'll be supporting the development application.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Further contributions around the table? Anything further to close? Okay, putting it to the vote then. All those in favour? That is all councillors present. The motion is carried. Council no longer sits as planning authority. Thank you, officers. Thank you, Executive Leader. Okay. Go if you want. Okay, councillors, we'll just continue moving through the agenda. You can leave if you like, yeah, unless you want to. We've only got one item left, but cool. Thank you. Okay, so as a part of our agenda, we have a late item that has been identified under 5.1. We first need the acceptance of the late and urgent item, local government election recount to fill vacancies, declarations of office. With the recommendation being that council determines by absolute majority to deal with this matter. Yeah? Yep, thank you for checking. Matter being one that was not included in this agenda of the 1st of September, the special meeting. So we're accepting by absolute majority that we will take this into today's agenda. Okay, moved by the Deputy, seconded by Councillor Palmer. All those in favour? That's all councillors present. The motion is carried. So with that acceptance of the late item, we can now deal with the item at 5.2, which is the local government election recount to fill vacancies, declarations of office, Krista Priest and Ross Marsden. Recommendation being that council notes the certificate of election issued by the City of Launceston and acknowledges that Krista Priest and Ross Marsden made their declarations of office at Town Hall on Monday, the 1st of September at 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. today. Somebody please to move. Councillor Harris, second by Councillor Gibson. Contributions? Great. I'll go look to the mover and the seconder.
Would just like to say welcome, like you did. It's lovely to have 2 new people. Wonderful to welcome Councillor Priest back. Made a wonderful contribution previously and brings a wealth of talent and skill and contacts to the table. And obviously, Mayor, as you said, wonderful to welcome a new member, Councillor Marsden, to the table with great recent state government political expertise as well. I'm sure that will be to our advantage around the table, and I look forward to working with both of them.
Great, thank you. Further contributions around the table? No? Yes. Councillor Priest.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your welcome today. And I would just like to say I have prepared a little bit of a speech, as I didn't speak last time when I was elected into this council. It is a profound honour to have been re-elected following a recount to the position of councillor for the City of Launceston. I'd like to thank all the people who have voted for me in the past and put your faith in me to serve this city, and thank my family and my friends for their support. I'm privileged to serve our community as a public servant at the Launceston General Hospital, where I'm currently based in the emergency department. Each day I'm inspired by the exemplary team of professionals with whom I have the privilege to work amongst. They consistently demonstrate compassion, expertise and unwavering commitment to the provision of critical care in our state, not only to our own population, but visitors from the mainland and overseas. And I'd just like to say that I look forward once again to being involved in local government, approaching the role with professionalism, a spirit of collaboration and a dedication to active community engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, there being no further contributions, move to the vote. All those in favour? All councillors present, the motion is carried. We close today's meeting at 1:42, with our next ordinary meeting being Thursday the 11th, I believe. Cool. Thank you, councillors.